Yeah, we're about 30 seconds out. But we are muted. No. Hey, I'm waiting for the landlord.
All right, thanks everybody for joining us today for our November 1st, 2021 regular council meeting at the CBRD Civic Room. I want to start today actually first by acknowledging that we are meeting on the unceded traditional territories of the Comox First Nation, and do want to thank them for welcoming us here. And we're going to start our meeting a little bit differently today. We just want to take some time to acknowledge our retiring fire chief, Chief Don Bardonix, who I believe is on the video with us today. And one of the things that you find out when you get onto city council is that you effectively have the fire department at your disposal. They gave me a little sign I can put in my window in case of emergencies. I haven't had to use it. But I got to know Chief Bardonix early on when he was explaining the value and need for our training center in East Courtenay. And I just, you know, I know he was here for 14 years or more, over 40 years in the career. His ability to explain why we needed that and get council on side, I think speaks to the other side of being a fire chief, which is sort of the more political side and budgets and those kinds of things. And I just want to really recognize the feedback that I get from any of the volunteers is just amazing leadership. And then our interfaces with you has also been equally amazing. And I just want to take the opportunity to thank you for your years of service. And with that, I'm not sure if any other council members had anything to add, but I'll give the opportunity. And I do have Councillor Hillian.
Thanks very much, Mayor, and Chief Don. It's been a pleasure to work with you. I want to applaud you for your professionalism, for your leadership, and for your courage, not only in the role, but in you're dealing with the whole issue of trauma. And I think the personal example that you provided set you up as a role model, not only for your department, but for all of our citizens and certainly members of this council who deal with stressful situations, the importance of looking after yourself, the importance of doing what's necessary to maintain good mental health. I really applaud you for that among all your other accomplishments. And I wish you nothing but the best. I see you've already grown your post-retirement beard. So welcome to the fraternity. You know, it makes life that much easier not having to scrape your face off every morning. But it really has been wonderful to work with you, and I wish you nothing but the best. Thanks, Don.
Thanks very much, Councillor Hillian. Any other comments from councillors? And thanks so much for bringing that up. I think that is absolutely important. But maybe I'll turn it over to Don and see if you've got any parting comments for us.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, just haven't been able to do this since 1976, so I'm kind of enjoying it. The leadership you've selected for the fire department, I know that the crew and the department are going to be in good hands. And the citizens of the community will be well protected going forward. I hope everything works out as well, and this community is capable of maintaining a volunteer fire department for decades to come. That's truly an accomplishment on the city's part.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Don. And I assume you've got a very busy evening ahead of you watching city council meetings. I hear they're very exciting to watch.
I live for it.
Fantastic. Well, again, thanks so much. And I really look forward to seeing you around the community.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great night.
Thank you.
With that, we will move on to our adoption of minutes. Moved by Councillor Cole Hamilton, seconded by McCollum. Thanks very much. And just, we do have Rayanne taking minutes virtually today. So I'll be just reiterating who's moving and seconding, which is not something I always do, but I will do my best to do that today, especially if you don't use your microphones. With that, are there any errors or omissions on the minutes? And I see nobody waving their hands, so we'll assume that they are accepted without error. Thanks very much for that. Any introduction of late items? Seeing none, no delegations today, so that will move us right into reports and presentations. And we have the Regional Leisure for Everyone Accessibility Program, the LEAP program. If somebody could move and second that. All right. Councillor Cole Hamilton.
Mayor, can I move the recommendation?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I'd like to move.
Oh, hey, your microphone turned off. My apologies. Hang on one second. Oh, I got lots of pieces of paper here. So let's go. Oh, I turned the wrong one on. That's probably why. Let me try that again. All right, back to you.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'll move that based on the November 1st, 2021 staff report, recreation access pass eligibility and regional pilot of leisure for everyone accessibility project, brackets LEAP. Council approve option 1 and direct staff to change the income eligibility for Courtenay recreation's access pass from the low income cutoff, LICO, to the low income measure, LIM, and that staff implement a 1-year pilot of the Leisure for Everyone accessibility program, LEAP, in partnership with the town of Comox, Village of Cumberland, and the Comox Valley Regional District to extend financial access recreation benefits to youth regardless of place of residence.
All right, moved by Councillor Cole Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Warren. Thanks for that. And I will pass it over to staff. There you go.
Through the mayor, Ms. Saunders is going to introduce this report.
All right, Ms. Saunders.
Thank you. Through the CAO to Mayor and Council, we have prepared a short presentation just to run through this staff report and the recommendations. So the purpose of the report is for Council to consider 2 recommendations as described related to recreation access for low-income residents in the city of Courtenay as well as the Comox Valley Regional District. The first is recommending that the city of Courtenay change the income eligibility threshold in the recreation access program from the low income cutoff to the low income measure to enable greater financial access for city of Courtenay residents. And the second is requesting approval to initiate a 1-year pilot program titled the Leisure for Everyone Accessibility Program, or LEAP, in partnership with the regional municipalities and the CVRD, with the first year focusing on extending recreation benefits to youth across the Comox Valley. The City of Courtenay's recreation access policy was adopted in 2001 and ensures residents have access to recreation regardless of the ability to pay. The city's recreation access program, otherwise known as RAP, was updated in 2020 with the launch of our new recreation registration software. Low-income residents receive 52 free drop-ins to programs and services such as the Wellness Center, Link Outdoor Pool, as well as a subsidy amount annually to apply towards registered programs. And in 2019, Council gave direction to staff to investigate options and implications of a regional recreation pass pilot program for the Comox Valley. So since that time, staff from the 4 local governments in the Comox Valley have formed an intermunicipal working group to explore regional recreation access options. As each local government has distinct recreation passes, including distinct financial access programs, staff have been working collaboratively to incrementally increase the regional collaboration in a way that each local government can support. And all local government staff who have been working together were in support of starting with increasing access for those who face the greatest financial barrier. And as such, staff have already implemented reciprocal agreements between each municipality and the regional district for low-income residents, so that they only have to apply one time for financial assistance. Previously, they would have to apply at both the regional district and their local municipality. And then have been working together on coordinating the implementation of LEAP as a regional financial assistance program with the pilot of extending benefits to youth starting in 2022, and coordinating the adoption of the low income measure as the income threshold for all financial assistance programs in the Comox Valley. A report was taken to the CVRD and was approved earlier this year with the LEAP program and the adoption of the low income measure. And staff expects similar reports to go before Comox and Cumberland councils in the coming weeks for a coordinated approach January 1st, 2022. Following this, the working group will continue to work together to explore options and impacts related to regional recreation access. So the LEAP program would start with a pilot extending access for youth. And so that would enable all eligible youth to receive 52 free drop-ins in each local government's recreation services, regardless of their place of residence. It would mean a single application for all 4 recreation departments, so you'd only have to apply once. It also includes changing the income eligibility from LICO to LIM, or sort of low income measure. And the rationale for focusing on youth initially is that youth use the financial assistance programs in all recreation departments at a higher rate than other populations. And we also know that youth participation in recreation and sport substantially decreases after the age of 13. So we're looking for ways to increase accessibility for youth and hopefully maintain their participation into their teenage years. These tables are in the report, but just wanted to walk council through them. This table just describes the impact of both changing from the low income cutoff measure to the low income, or sorry, the low income cutoff to the low income measure, both for the city of Courtenay, but as well as extending it to the Comox Valley Regional District. So extending access to youth who do not live in Courtenay would result in anywhere from 1,195 to 1,335 additional youth being eligible for financial assistance. Based on our current participation rates in financial assistance programs, we'd be looking at about 350 to 380 new youth accessing financial assistance in the city of Courtenay. The impact of adjusting from LICO to LIM for youth is actually quite minimal, with only 32 additional youth being eligible in Courtenay and approximately 73 within the Comox Valley. This table estimates the potential financial impacts of the recommended changes. The revenue value of the subsidy that would be provided by these changes is approximately $29,000. However, it's important to note that this doesn't necessarily equate to a reduction in revenue for the city of Courtenay. In order for there to be an actual reduction in revenue, youth who will now qualify under the new program would have had to have been paying full rates and participating at the same rates as predicted in this analysis. That's unlikely due to both the financial barriers and the fact that many youth would have been accessing recreation in their local areas. We use the same redemption rates to do our financial analysis as we've seen historically, which is about 23% of eligible youth accessing recreation in Courtenay and about 26% in the CVRD. Additionally, there wouldn't be any increased expenditures, as these programs that are now eligible for the 52 drop-ins are already running, already staffed, and already have supplies. So we're already in place and able to accommodate additional youth. The second change that staff are recommending is changing from the low income cutoff to the low income measure. The low income cutoff is determined through the comparison of necessary expenses to income, which is based on 1992 data and then is adjusted annually based on CPI. It does differentiate between rural and urban areas, but it can become out of date as costs of necessities like food and housing can't keep up with CPI, or CPI doesn't keep up with those costs. The low income measure identifies Canadian households whose incomes are below half of the population median income. It indicates households that are facing greater financial hardship than most. And it doesn't require updating the same way, as it's updated annually based on household income survey. So each year it's updated based on the actual incomes reported across the country. While both are adjusted for household size, neither accounts for the cost of living differences across the country or across the province. Through research, we know that municipalities such as Vancouver and Richmond have moved to the low income measure, while others such as the Capital Regional District have applied percentages to LICO rates to accommodate for their local cost of living. The use of the low income measure would enable more Courtenay residents to access financial assistance as the income thresholds are higher. And while the low income measure isn't a measure of poverty, it does indicate those households that are facing greater financial hardships than most. So this table, which is also in the report, demonstrates the impacts and the benefits of changing the income threshold from LICO to LIM for City of Courtenay residents. This is only for adults because we've looked at the youth ones previously. The change would allow for 1,400 more City of Courtenay adult residents to be eligible for financial assistance, likely based on our historical participation rates, we'd see an increase of about 182 individuals accessing recreation through the financial assistance programs. Like the financial analysis of the impacts of the LEAP pilot for youth, in order for there to be an actual impact to revenue received by the city of Courtenay, adults who now qualify under the low income measure would have had to be paying full rates and participating at the same levels as predicted in this analysis, which is unlikely due to the financial barriers, again, that they're facing. The revenue value of the subsidy that would be provided by these changes is approximately $47,000. And we've described some of the assumptions in the report. So our next steps, assuming council's approval of the recommendations, would be to implement LEAP for youth across the Comox Valley for a 1-year pilot starting January 1st, 2022. Adjusting the income eligibility threshold for Courtenay's Recreation Access Pass, again, starting January 1st. And then continuing to work with intermunicipal working group to expand financial access across the region, and continuing to explore options and implications for regional recreation access pass, and then reporting back on the impacts and outcomes of these changes in a year from now. If there's any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Thanks very much for the report. And I don't see any questions just yet. Oh, there we go. Councillor Theos.
Thanks, Mayor. Thank you so much for the report. You know, it's so critical at a young age, as Ms. Saunders was talking about, for young people to introduce themselves to the world of physical activity, and of course, with physical activity comes reduced healthcare costs and social costs because their energy and fitness levels are put into a form that is very productive. My question, and I'm glad to see that there's expansion to assist youth and to be very inclusive. But some of the questions that we've had over the last few years was in regards to what we're doing for seniors, because we're having a lot of seniors in our community struggling financially, and as time goes on and costs go up, as you had mentioned, cost of living, more and more are falling under that threshold of being able to afford even physical activity such as this, and that does concern me tremendously, because along with youth and everyone in general, but especially seniors, keeping physically fit and having mobility is the key for functional lifestyle. So can you just give me some ideas of what we're doing for seniors, please?
Absolutely. Thank you for the question, Councillor Theos. So with the adjustment to the low income measure from the low income cutoff, that will enable more seniors to access the recreation access program, which gives 52 free drop-ins and then a program subsidy annually. And so we do believe, or we expect and know, that the change in the income threshold will actually make more adults and seniors eligible for financial assistance. Following the adoption of LEAP and its extension to youth, staff will be working collaboratively to see if we can extend those types of benefits across the region to other age groups, such as adults and seniors. But we recommend starting with one age group to see how it works before we expand to others.
All right, thanks very much, Councillor Theos. And 1 second, and we have Councillor Warren.
Great, thank you, Mayor, and thanks so much for this. I think this is great news. As we know, the regional district embarked on the poverty reduction strategy and assessment, and there were some action items coming out of that. And I'm assuming that these kinds of initiatives kind of feed into that strategy. I'm just wondering if you're able to speak to how this kind of feeds into that, or what involvement you may have had with this in terms of that strategy. So I think all these things just really add up to do the work that we want to do for those families that are low income in the community.
Thank you, Councillor Warren. I haven't been heavily involved in the poverty reduction strategy, and so I can't speak to it in detail, but this is definitely one way of reducing the cost of living by enabling financial access for those who are facing financial hardship in the community. So it would address one of those items, but I can't speak to the poverty reduction strategy in more detail than that.
Right. Yeah, and I think because we're just embarking on some of the actual actions, I'm sure that this will feed into that at some point. Thank you.
All right, thanks for the questions. And are there any further questions before I call the vote? Thanks very much for that report. It was very detailed. And I think didn't leave a whole lot of questions to ask actually. So really appreciate that. So that being said, all those in favor? Any opposed? And that passes unanimously. All right, next we have the 2021 capital budget amendment for Mcphee Meadows. And I've got Councillor, hang on one second. Oh, they're dropping like flies. Hang on one second. Councillor, oh, you're not a councillor at all. Hang on. It's not even moving. There we go. Councillor Hillian.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll move the recommendation that based on the November 1st, 2021 staff report, 2021 capital budget amendment, Mcphee Meadows concept design options analysis, Council approve option 1 and direct staff to amend the 2021 capital budget, adding an additional $25,000 to the Mcphee Meadows concept design options analysis budget for a total capital budget of $55,000, and that staff transfer $11,800 from reserve for future expenditures and $13,200 from the Parks Amenity Reserve to cover the additional costs.
All right, I think that's been moved by Councillor Hillian, seconded by Councillor McCollum, and I'll pass it over to staff to give us a report.
Thank you. Through the Mayor to Council, through our 2021-22 strategic planning process, Mcphee Meadows was highlighted as a key project for our Recreation, Parks and Community Services Department. Ms. Saunders is going to give an overview of this update report.
Thank you. Through the CAO to Mayor and Council. So the purpose of the report is for Council to consider the recommendation to approve an amendment to the 2021 capital budget to facilitate the award of the RFP for the Mcphee Meadows concept design options analysis in 2021. The approved budget in the 2021 capital budget of $30,000 for Mcphee Meadows was demonstrated through an RFP process and review of the proposed scope of work to not be sufficient enough to ensure a thorough park design process, including community engagement as described in the Parks and Recreation Master Plan guidelines for park development. With Mcphee Meadows being a substantial addition to the park system, including trails and river access, as well as requirements for environmental stewardship, it's important that the concept design process be robust and meet community engagement expectations. The staff report outlines alternative options to approving the budget amendment as recommended, however, would both result in delays to the concept design completion and would also then result in delays to the design and actual development and opening of the park. So based on the significance of this amenity to the community and Council stated strategic priority to work towards the opening of the park to the public, staff recommend the approval of the 2021 capital budget amendment as outlined in the report.
Excellent. Thanks very much for that. And we that has generated a couple of questions. So first off, we have Councillor Hillian.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks to staff for the report. This is great news. We obviously have a pressing need for more access to park space, given the crowded use of our current parks, particularly during the pandemic. But also, given the importance of this piece of property, it's really important that we do it right. So I think it makes sense to increase the budget to allow for that proper consultation. I just want to clarify whether the public consultation that's envisioned in bringing this park to fruition will include the railroad lands at the corner of Menzies and 5th Street, given that is a significant entry point to gain access to Mcphee Meadows.
Thank you, Councillor Hillian. Yes, it will. The city does have an MOU with the ICF around the rail line. And so this is that section of rail is included in that MOU and will be considered within the concept design.
Great, thanks very much.
Right, thanks for the question. And we have Councillor McCullum.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks so much for the report. It's really exciting to see this park development moving forward, and I'm certainly in support of option 1 of doing the budget amendment for 2021, especially given that there's not really a savings to push off the work. So I can't really see the case to be made for pushing the work further off into the future. I did have a question just about the 13,000 park amenity reserve amount that we would be using toward the budget amendment, and just wanted to ask if there is any other park projects or uses for that reserve that are going to be pushed off or impacted by our decision to do the budget amendment.
Thank you, Councillor McCullum. Not that I'm aware of. No, I don't believe we're delaying any other projects or prioritizing those funds. But I am looking at our Director of Finance just to confirm that's the case.
Sure, yes. And Council, oh, you can hear me? No, this wouldn't affect any other projects in the financial plan and would still leave about 490,000 in the Parks Amenity Reserve if used. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. That seems like a pretty small amount given what the balance in that reserve is. Thanks for answering that.
Excellent. Thanks, Councillor McCullum, for the question. And we have Councillor Warren.
Great, thank you, Mayor. And thanks again. Hopefully your work will be done soon after this report. I just wanted to know for those public who may be interested in not weighing into the whole report that this land was donated in 2011, so that was 10 years ago. So I think that it's great that we're getting going on getting this happening. But also to note that in conjunction with the consultation, the plan is a phased in approach. So just for anyone who may be concerned about this taking off really quickly, and I think it's a really well thought out approach, and there will be a phase in with only a partial opening that's planned. So I just wanted to make those points. Thanks.
Excellent. Thanks very much. Looks like we are fully questioned out. So with that, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that is unanimous. Thanks very much for that. And next we have an update proposal for zoning amendment bylaw 3030-3040 Kilpatrick. And Councillor McCullum.
Yeah, I can move this one. I'll move that based on the November 1st staff report, updated proposal, zoning amendment bylaw number 3030-3040 Kilpatrick Avenue, and the September 27th, 2020 staff report, updated proposal, zoning amendment bylaw number 3030-3040 Kilpatrick Avenue, and the September 7th, 2021 staff report, zoning amendment bylaw number 3030-3040 Kilpatrick Avenue. Council approve option 1 and proceed with first and second readings of zoning amendment bylaw number 3030-2021, and that council direct staff to schedule and advertise a statutory public hearing with respect to the above referenced bylaw.
Excellent. And that was moved by Councillor McCullum, and there was a simultaneous seconding, but I'll give it to Councillor Frisch for this time. And with that, I will pass it over to staff.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Mr. Fitzgerald's going to introduce this update to this zoning application.
Thank you through Mayor, or through the CAO to Mayor and Council. So this is a rezoning proposal for 41 units multi-residential development at 3040 Kilpatrick Avenue. The proposal was originally before Council at the September 7th meeting, and then again at the September 27th meeting. Public hearing was scheduled for this proposal last week as part of the public hearings on October 27th. However, it was canceled once the applicant identified errors in the plans, which in turn impacted the bylaw. The error was an incorrect setback label for the 4th floor of the building, or sorry, the 5th floor of the building, which is set back further than floors 1 through 4. The applicant has since completed additional minor revisions to the parkade as well as to the front and side yard setbacks, which were also detailed in the report. So at this time, staff are recommending that council gives the bylaw first and second reading, and the proposal once again proceeds to public hearing. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Mr. Fitzgerald, for that. And I'm looking around to see, I don't see any questions as of yet. Again, I think these are minor changes. Council's heard a lot about this project over the last year or so. So with that, I will call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that's unanimous. And next we have a development variance permit number 2104 3208 Courtenay Crescent. And I have Councillor Frisch.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I'll move that based on the November 1st, 2021 staff report, development variance permit number 2104 for 3208 Courtenay Crescent. Council approve option 1 and issue development variance permit number 2104.
Thanks very much. That's been moved by Councillor Frisch, seconded by Councillor Cole Hamilton. And with that, I will pass it over to staff.
Thank you, through Mayor and Council. This is a continuation. At our last council meeting, we reviewed a development variance permit for properties within the subdivision. Mr. Fitzgerald's going to give an overview of the second application in this regard.
Thank you through CAO to Mayor and Council. So the subject lot, as the CAO outlined, is within the North Ridge Estate subdivision, which was subject to the variance application last council meeting. Again, this application is similar in that the applicant proposes to reduce the required rear yard for a future house from the required 12 meters to 10 meters. The applicant, in this case, justifies the variance as being necessary to accommodate a deck that in turn provides outdoor covered amenity space for the planned basement suite unit. A public information meeting was held in support of the proposal, with one comment submitted opposed to the proposal due to the reduction in the buffer at the rear of the proposed lot, or the rear of the lot to the adjacent farmland. The application was also advertised, or the variance was also advertised, and no further comments were received by the city in response to that advertisement. Regarding the buffer that was the subject of the one letter received, it's currently a combination of a 15-meter strip of treed parkland as well as the 12-meter rear yard setback for a total of 27 meters. And this proposal would result in that buffer being reduced to 25 meters, which again would be that 15-meter strip of treed parkland in addition to the 10 meters of rear yard before the edge of the building. Staff are recommending approval of this variance as it will have limited impact on the character of the neighborhood, allows for additional design flexibility, and maintains an appropriate buffer from the adjacent farmland. I'll take any questions.
Excellent. Thanks very much. And we'll pass it over to Councillor Hilling.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks to staff for the report. I'm not sure if you know, Matthew, but you're up on 6 screens in the room here, so we're seeing a lot of you. I'm just curious about the objection that we have from the neighbor who has agricultural land and speaks about how the original setback was set to support the urban interface with agricultural uses. Suggests that this variance is to serve a temporary purpose while the agricultural uses are long lasting. Do we have any more information on what this objection sees as the potential problem for the use of that agricultural land? My sense has been that the primary concern that farmers have had is that people will move into these types of neighborhoods and then complain about the agricultural uses that are there and the smell from crops and animals and such. But I don't see the problem that this relatively minor variance will create. I'm just wondering if we have a better understanding of that. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for that question. Through CAO to Mayor and Council. So no, we don't have any additional information as to the future plans of the farmland.
All right, well, we'll just assume that it's a matter of principle that the farmer would like the buffer to remain as was originally intended. But nonetheless, I think based on what staff are telling us, and we have an applicant here who wants to create space for an aging relative, and that seems certainly a valid reason for this variance. Thanks.
All right, thanks very much, Councillor Hillian. And see no further questions or comments. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that is unanimous. Thank you very much. Next, we have the Greenwood trunk sewer funding reallocation. And I'll pass that over to Councillor McCollum.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll move that based on today's staff report, Greenwood trunk sewer funding reallocation, council approve option 1 and direct staff to reallocate 85,000 from South Courtenay sewer, 100,000 from Cascara and Kilpatrick connection to Greenwood, 306,000 from 306,100 from First Street lift station replacement, and 220,000 from Puntledge sanitary catchment projects to the Greenwood trunk sewer capital project in 2021, and transfer 648,900 from the sewer asset management reserve to the Greenwood trunk sewer capital project in 2021.
Thanks. That's been moved by Councillor McCollum and seconded by Councillor Frisch. And I will pass it over to staff for the report.
Thank you. Through Mayor and Council, Mr. Davidson is going to give an overview, and Eric Sears from Urban Systems is here to give a short presentation on this project as well.
All right. And I think Mr. Davidson. Yes.
Thank you, Jeff. Through the CAO to Mayor and Council, some bad news from the Greenwood trunk project, unfortunately, tonight. We have had some more issues with groundwater out on site. As such, we're here tonight seeking a budget reallocation to complete the works. We do have our design consultant, Eric Sears from Urban Systems, here to present some further background info. So I'll pass it over to Eric now.
Thanks, Chris. Through the CAO to Mayor and Council, thanks for having me tonight. As Chris mentioned, and is in the staff report, I'm here to provide a brief overview of the funding reallocation request for the Greenwood sewer. There is a, do I have control here? No, sorry. Goals for this evening are to provide you just a brief overview of some of the history of the project. As a reminder, a bit of context on the technical aspects of what we found and what we're proposing to do as a solution, and then also an update on budget and schedule implications. Just a bit of a project summary. The Greenwood trunk sewer project is a project that's a significant sewer upgrade to the system. It was the #1 project in the sewer master plan, and it is currently underway. It has been for a year and a half. It's about 75% complete. In September of last year, as part of the excavation, there was some significant water that was found to be underneath the lift station, and then in such that it wasn't achievable to install the lift station. So through other consultants and experts, there was some solutions proposed to be able to rectify that. So the project is, it's South Courtenay or East Courtenay sewer that's taking the sewer away from East Courtenay and alleviating capacity there to free up for growth in East Courtenay. Construction. So yeah, construction began in June 2020, and the project was on track to be well below budget. But then the water came and there was a budget reallocation that was requested earlier this year. So the original recommendation and remedy that was brought before you earlier this year was to alleviate aquifer pressure that was found below the lift station. The aquifer was unknown at the time of design and caused some significant concerns. The solution to the aquifer at the time was to mix the existing ground below the lift station with grout and form a solid block to alleviate uplift pressure, as well as seepage that was found. In July, once the first round of reclamation was done, there was more water that was found to be entering the lift station. It was found from what we thought is a second water source. Sorry.
Mr. Davidson.
Thanks, Eric. Maybe I'll take it from here.
Sure.
So unfortunately, in July of this year, we did have a second hydraulic breach. As we excavated down to full depth, we encountered some more water, approximately 0.5 meters above the floor of the excavation. It flooded in from an adjacent sand lens. So unfortunately, this will require remediation. Oh, Eric, can you pass me the clicker there, please? Yeah, okay. So unfortunately, this will require further remediation. So this secondary water source is assumed to be coming from a groundwater pocket, such as the sand lens. It did flow in through our initial remediation, our jet grouting works that we completed back in May. So the secondary sand lens, we believe, is between the layer of gray marine clay and also the existing diamect, which is retaining the aquifer. So unfortunately, because there is water flowing, it's creating void spaces around the excavation. These void spaces can lead to instability and cause issues with water flow that may upset the works going forward.
Is there a slide? Should these slides be changing as well?
Thank you, Mayor.
I'm here to help.
I appreciate that. So required remediation, contractor to drill at multiple locations outside the excavation and pressure inject grout to fill the void spaces. This may sound similar to the previous remediation, but it's slightly different. We're drilling down basically using something similar to a rock drill and pumping grout to refusal. So we're essentially trying to fill the void spaces with grout to stabilize the excavation and also to stop the flow of water. So once the completed remediation is done, we can then proceed with regular lift station installation works. So we'll install the lift station, we'll pour the concrete base first, and theoretically everything should be nice and stable and there should be minimal water flow. Risks if not remediated, quite a few, unfortunately. If waters continue to allow to flow, the lift station could be forced out of the ground by flotation, experiencing ground ejection, basically hydraulicking out of the ground due to buoyancy forces. Voids may undermine the engineered backfill, basically destabilizing the excavation, and over time, preferential flow paths may further erode in situ soils, causing more and larger voids. So if council approves our proposed recommendation tonight, project schedule is as before you, basically achieving substantial completion in February of 2022. Construction estimates, as per the slide in front of you, we are looking for a total budget reallocation of $1,360,000 to complete the works. The majority of this is made up by the prime contractor's work, drilling contractor, and also reclamation contractor, which is our specialist jet grouting contractor. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Excellent. Thanks very much for your presentation. I really appreciate it. And that has generated some questions. I'll start with Councillor Cole-Hamilton.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I have two questions, if that's all right. The first one, just because this is the cause of all these problems, I was wondering if you could explain just briefly what a sand lens is. It strikes me perhaps an extremely uncomfortable form of contacts, but perhaps there's more to it.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for the question. Sand lens is basically a layer of aggregate material, sand, that contains a lot of water. Unfortunately for us, it may be connected to the aquifer at a location further away from the excavation. It's not directly connected, we know that. But at a minimum, there is a large source of water contained or connected to the sand lens directly adjacent to our excavation. We do believe it's different from the pressurized aquifer that we encountered during our previous excavations. Through testing, we've been able to determine that they act independently when pumping respectively. So it's a bit of a challenging situation up there, unfortunately, hydrogeotechnically. Sorry, did that answer your question?
That does, and hopefully bad things don't happen in threes here. I was also wondering if, perhaps this is a question for Ms. Nelson, I was wondering with the reallocation of the 2021 funds from those 4 projects, if you could just explain, does that have an impact of any kind on those projects? Perhaps you could just clarify that.
Yeah, just 1 second. There we go. Look at that.
Yeah, thank you through the CAO to Mayor and Council. So when we were made aware of this significant financial impact, we immediately started working with engineering and public works to identify which projects we could potentially move funds from and how that would impact the upcoming year and the 5-year financial plan. So we started moving the projects around and ensuring that they were still incorporated in the upcoming year and what those impacts would be. So the financial impacts that you see in front of you in the report tonight are taking into account moving those projects into 2022 and still funding them in next year, and then how that will impact the sewer capital plan beyond as well. So we did take a fulsome review of all the projects to ensure they were still incorporated and not impacted. It will impact the user fee to generate the additional funds to do those projects, but we wanted to make sure that you could see that full impact today when making this decision.
Okay, great. Thanks for the clarification. Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Cole-Hamilton. And next we have Councillor Theos, I believe.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, Councillor Cole-Hamilton graciously asked the question I was going to ask, so I'll pivot a little bit, and I'll just ask in regards to, now this is 2 times where work such as this has been put into place, and significant infrastructure to seal the water flows from that aquifer. Now that infrastructure is in place, are there risks moving forward that either of those 2 infrastructures would fail down the road?
Excellent question. Thank you very much. Through the CAO to Mayor and Council. Yes, unfortunately, there always is going to be a little bit of risk, especially with construction of this nature. It's not a typical off-the-shelf solution. It's not sort of run-of-the-mill construction works. That being said, the initial remediation was quite successful in sealing the aquifer, and we do believe it was very positive, of course. We feel very strongly that this next round of remediation will solve the problem. So there's always going to be a little bit of risk, but we do feel strongly that we will be able to move forward successfully.
Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thanks very much. And Councillor McCollum.
Thanks, Mayor. Well, 2 of my questions have already been answered. So I'll just looking at my list here. Yeah, I think the only thing I had left here was just clarification. Well, first of all, I want to say I really appreciate the level of detail provided to us about the implications of each of the 3 options that were provided in the staff report. I found that really helpful. And the only thing that I wasn't clear about in terms of the user fee increases, just looking at option one, it's going to most likely be around 7.5% for the upcoming year. Does that only impact the user fee, and are frontage fees expected to stay as they are, or is it going to be blended in some way? Because there's kind of two pieces to the sewer fund, isn't there?
There you go.
Yes, thank you. So we're not anticipating changing the frontage rates for 2022. So this would just strictly be towards the user fee for sewer.
Great. Thank you. So that's all encompassing the $26 is the average household, and it's on the user fee side.
Oh, sorry. There it is. Okay. Oh, I think that got somebody else. Oh, there you go.
Yes, yes, that is correct. Thank you.
If people are clicking a button when I press here, it chooses a thing that's not there when I press. It's very exciting. But I do believe that answered that question. And so on to Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Mayor. Another financial question. So I think we're clear on the record here that the challenges with this project are going to result in our citizens paying an additional amount onto their sewer fee for the future year. Is there any possibility of mitigating that if in fact we have unexpected revenues that come in from other sources related to this project?
And there you go.
Okay. Yes, thank you for the question. So if unexpected revenues were to come in, I would say it's highly unlikely they would come in within the next few months in order for us to incorporate that into the user fee calculation for 2022. That being said, if it did come in after that point, we could factor that into the sewer fund and take that into account for future year user fee calculations.
All right, and Paula.
Yes, thanks, Mayor. Are there any grants available from senior government for projects that encounter these sorts of challenges? This must happen with some frequency across the country, despite the best efforts of our engineers. Things do go wrong, and I'm just wondering if there's any relief provided through any of our granting sources.
Yeah, so I'm not aware of any grants for for an item such as this. That being said, there was option 2 provided, which is utilizing Community Works gas tax funds, which the city has access to. We received an additional payment in 2021 this year. So if those funds were utilized towards this, that would help to offset the impact to the user fee. And that is identified as option 2.
Okay, thanks for reminding me of that. I wonder if staff could comment on the rationale for option 1 over option 2, given that option 2 does have a reduced impact on our ratepayers.
Sorry, through Mayor to Councillor Hillen, the reports highlights the opportunities and challenges with each option. During the discussion that we had through our strategic planning process, it was identified that community works funds have a purpose, and we're going to be running through those options, particularly with respect to the additional revenue that came through the 2022 financial plan. So I'll defer to Ms. Nelson in terms of some of that direction, but or discussion on the background options. But we heard fairly clearly from council that we want to be strategic in the utilization of those funds in support of a number of the council priorities. The option that is recommended to you, we believe, is a balance between the previous use of gas tax monies and the combination of user fee and reallocating some existing capital monies.
Right, and I'll pass it over to Jennifer Nelson.
Yeah, so I think our CAO said it well, and Option 1 does take into account, we did some analysis around the previous $1 million of Community Works gas tax funds that were used towards this project. And so the recommendation is to leave that as is and put that towards the Greenwood trunk. And so this is a balance between the two, leaving the remainder or the additional payment available for other types of projects within the upcoming financial plan you may want to use that towards.
Okay, thanks very much.
And Councillor McCollum.
Thanks. Yeah, just picking up actually on Councillor Hillian's question about future revenues or possibly, and thinking back to when we first learned of this, or when we first prioritized this project in our budget, there was, I think it was about 30% was funded by our DCCs at that time, which of course was only a small portion of the project. And then in the interim, it's of course become much more impactful with these 2 incidents. And do we continue to collect DCCs for this project going forward as new development connects, or do DCCs kind of only look backwards? And if so, could we potentially change what that is based on the fact that the project is more costly now than it was when we initially funded it?
Yeah, I'll touch on that, and then I may have to pass it over to our CAO to add. My understanding is that the DCC bylaw is in the works to be updated, and so I don't believe you can go backwards. It's moving forward, but so my understanding is there isn't an opportunity to receive additional funds going forward through the DCC bylaw, but maybe I'll pass it over to Mr. Garbett to respond further.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the question. We'll do some research and get back to you on that. I believe Ms. Nelson's correct. However, we are in a DCC process review, but we do have a project that was initiated and DCCs were utilized. So thanks for the question. We'll report back to council.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I guess that's no more further questions at this point. So I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? And I don't see any opposed, so that's unanimous. And thanks very much for the report. I know it's heavy news and not obviously the best news, but hopefully moving forward, it'll just be smooth sailing. So. Next, we have the notice inaugural Comox Valley Regional District Board. All right. Okay. And yeah, so we've got the inaugural, and I do have somebody who's probably more organized than I am. Councillor Coleman.
Okay, so this is a short one. So I'd like to move that in response to the correspondence from the Comox Valley Regional District notice of inaugural CVRD board meeting, the council make the following City of Courtenay appointments for the period of November 23rd, 2021 to November 2022. Comox Valley Regional District 2021 director appointments. Comox Valley Regional District Board of Directors, 4 directors, Councillor Will Cole Hamilton, Councillor Doug Hillian, Councillor Melanie McCollum, Councillor Wendy Morin. Alternate directors, Mayor Bob Wells, Councillor Mano Theos, and Councillor David Frisch. Voting strength for city directors on the CVRD board. The city has 18 votes. Councillor Will Cole Hamilton, 4 votes. Councillor Doug Hillian, 5 votes. Councillor Melanie McCollum, 5 votes. Councillor Wendy Morin, 4 votes. 3 directors to the Comox Valley Sewage Commission. 3 directors elected to the CVRD board to serve. Councillor Will Cole Hamilton, Councillor Doug Hillian, Councillor Wendy Morin, with alternates Mayor Bob Wells, Councillor Melanie McCollum, Councillor Mano Theos, and Councillor David Frisch. 4 directors to the Comox Valley Water Committee, 4 directors elected to the CBRD board to serve. Councillor Wilco Hamilton, 1 vote. Councillor Doug Hillian, 2 votes. Councillor Melanie McCollum, 2 votes. Councillor Wendy Moran, 2 votes. Alternates Bob Wells, Councillor Mano Theos, and Councillor David Frisch. 4 directors to the Comox Strathcona Regional Hospital District Board, 4 directors elected to the CBRD board to serve. Councillor Wilco Hamilton, Councillor Doug Hillian, Councillor Melanie McCollum, Councillor Wendy Moran, with alternates Mayor Bob Wells, Councillor Mano Theos, and Councillor David Frisch. 4 directors to the Comox Valley Recreation Commission, 4 directors elected to the CBRD board to serve. Councillor Wilco Hamilton, Councillor Doug Hillian, Councillor Melanie McCollum, and Councillor Wendy Moran, with alternates Bob Wells, Councillor Mano Theos, and Councillor David Frisch. And 4 directors to the Comox Strathcona Waste Management Board, 4 directors elected to CBRD board to serve. Councillor Wilco Hamilton, Councillor Doug Hillian, Councillor Melanie McCollum, Councillor Wendy Moran, with alternates Mayor Bob Wells, Councillor Mano Theos, and Councillor David Frisch. Oh, and that's it.
Moved by Councillor Cole Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Moran. Man, that was like 3 volumes of motions there. So I appreciate you working your way through that. Any questions or comments on the appointments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? And that passes unanimously. And that brings us down to Tree of Life. Councillor Hillian.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a request for a letter of support from a recently formed society working with a bus company to develop a funding proposal to the federal government for transportation service on the North Island between the communities of Port McNeill, Port Hardy, and environs with the Campbell River and Comox Valley areas. And I'd like to move that we provide a letter of support for this organization, for this organization's application to provide this service.
All right, that's been moved by Councillor Hillian to write a letter of support, seconded by Councillor Moran. And is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? That passes unanimously. And that brings us to the DCBIA Downtown Business Improvement Association for financial support. And Councillor Cole Hamilton.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So this is a letter from the Downtown Courtenay Business Improvement Association asking for support for a social media campaign to let the general public know that downtown is open and accessible. And it's in response to the extension of the time frame for the 5th Street Bridge project, and the recognition that that will take until January. So obviously through the holiday season, which is coming. The request is for a range between $6,000 and $99,500 for a social media campaign. I would like to move that the council allocate up to $9,500 to support the BIA social media during November and December of 2021.
All right, that's been moved by Councillor Cole Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Frisch, because I heard him best. With that, are there any further comments or questions? Councillor Hillian.
Thank you, Mayor. I hope this will be unanimous. I think it's no secret that our downtown business has been stretched and strained first by the pandemic and then added to that the delays in the bridge project. And I think it's really important that we do what we can to support them, particularly in this season of the year when they rely on additional commerce to pay their bills and feed their families. It appears from the letter that there is a perception that it's difficult to get into town, and as such, some people are avoiding it. And I think we want to discourage that notion and let people know that you can, in fact, get into town. It's a good place to shop. It's a good place to support our businesses, and wholeheartedly support this. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Hillian. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? And thanks very much for that. I concur with Councillor Hillian, getting unanimous support from council. I think it's important for sending that message that we are doing our best to support our downtown businesses. With that, we have a bylaw enforcement update. If somebody would like to move that. Move receipt. So Councillor Frisch moved and Councillor Cole Hamilton seconded, and I will pass it over to staff.
Thank you, through Mayor and Council. Mr. DeGraff is going to give an overview, and I believe Ms. O'Connell is going to assist through the presentation.
Thank you through the CAO to the Mayor and Council. The purpose of the report is to update Council on the bylaw enforcement activities and strategies regarding homeless encampments within the city of Courtenay. It's an estimated 230 people are experiencing homelessness in the Comox Valley. That's a 74% increase from pre-pandemic levels. Causes of homelessness, broken families. Just listened to a story today of a person experiencing homelessness, telling how that individual was neglected. Pretty sad. Addictions, mental health disorders, poverty. Like many other communities on Vancouver Island, in BC and across Canada, there's a shortage of supported housing, affordable housing, and shelter beds available. As long as this continues, homelessness will continue to exist within our community. City of Courtenay continues to advocate at the federal and provincial levels for additional measures that will alleviate the shortfall in housing and social supports in our community. The role of bylaw enforcement is evolving within the support of our community. Collaboration is critical. We've built very strong relationships with people experiencing homelessness. We built strong relationships with other partners such as the RCMP. And we're building strong relationships with outreach, which is critical as well. We're providing a service that is respectful, compassionate, and caring, and in tune with social issues and root causes. There's a couple of stories in the report. Maybe I'll just go through one. This is what bylaw enforcement officers see frequently in their daily duties. During a recent cold and wet October morning, bylaw enforcement officers found a single tent encampment. Someone cried, "This person needs help." The officers approached the tent. A homeless individual was found lying face down, helpless, barely responsive, and pale, with a portion of his body exposed directly to the elements. Syringes were noted. The client was breathing, but it was evident that the drug was taking over their body. The officers kept talking to the patient. Their responsiveness improved somewhat. 911 ambulance was called. Paramedics arrived quickly, which was great. But they could not get the stretcher. He was about 150 feet away. The paramedics and bylaw officers developed a plan. Paramedic then attended the ailing person. The paramedic's soothing and caring voice, it was special, you guys, it was magical. Really comfort him. The individual, very compassionate, empathetic, which was critical. Just very gifted. The paramedic protected the patient's dignity and managed to sit him up. They sighed through their pain, struggled through the effects of a serious medical condition. A bylaw officer on one side and a paramedic on the other lifted the trembling person to their feet. They walked slowly to the ambulance, to warmth, and to care. The homeless individual, fortunately, recovered in this situation. So frequently, the bylaw officers, what we're seeing is the overdose is a real serious condition. In our experiences out there, we do come across frequently persons experiencing homelessness, overdosing, and we see the administer of Noxalone to save people. We've seen a few of those in the last month. Unfortunately, a couple of homeless persons have passed away in the last couple of months as well. There's some information about 3 of the drugs in the report, the illicit drugs, meth, crack cocaine, and fentanyl. The RCMP, Constable Paul Jones, who is an expert on that, provided a lot of information about those drugs in the appendix. The fentanyl is the big one. We've experienced 40 deaths in the North Island region due to overdoses, and many of that is due to fentanyl. We need to watch the permanent camps, the 24/7 ones. They've been associated with increased crime, safety issues, public health issues, fire hazards issues, nuisances, and increasing remediation costs. So other jurisdictions, RCMP and the provincial courts have confirmed this. There's some examples that are provided in the report and a couple of new ones. The Victoria example is a good one. There's references to that. And some Vancouver examples in Strathcona, Oppenheimer parks. Basically, when these camps get entrenched and they're 24/7, they tend to grow. And then the issues escalate with them. You get crime, you get organized crime, you get drug wars going on in there. You get other safety issues, public health issues. This COVID really becomes a concern, and other communicable diseases, fire hazards, lots of issues with that, and some significant remediation costs. So the idea there, and what we're seeing in other jurisdictions and what we're implementing here, and in accordance with the Supreme Court of British Columbia rulings, the city now requires encampments to be dismantled daily at 8 a.m. And then persons who are experiencing homeless can set up camp during the evenings. So the implementation approach is collaborative, and I'm going to emphasize compassion, because what we learned, and there's a great document put out by Island Health, compassion is an acting guide, and a lot of good material in there. Being positive is huge, and compassionate, empathetic, getting over the barriers. So relationship and multi-holder stakeholder process, people matter approach. For the process for dealing with the 24/7 permanent camps, we give lots of warnings in advance. Multi-stakeholder team, get consent. So when we're removing and disposing of garbage, we get assistance from persons who experience homeless and their consent. And then any abandoned waste is we remove that as well. And we connect them to the warming shelter. They connect warming shelter to get warmed up. And they're persons experiencing homeless, they're not prevented from setting up their tents each evening. We've done this with 4 of the camps, and now we monitor them daily. And we use that compassionate relationship building approach. Most are in really good condition. We do have some setbacks. And when we do, RCMP is critical. They really help us with most of the time when we're dealing with this through the relationships, through the trust building, the compassion, we get cooperation, and it's really good. Sometimes we don't. And when we don't get cooperation or there's threats to staff, then RCMP have been critical, and they're critical to this strategy for the success of it. The City of Courtenay Bylaw Services focuses on ensuring parks and public spaces are safe and accessible for all during the day, while respecting the rights and needs of people to have somewhere to put their tents at night while there is a shortage of shelter and housing. The city continues to modernize bylaw enforcement, policies, procedures, and approaches to ensure that we are informed, responsive, collaborative, compassionate, and respectful for all our community residents. We don't presume to know it all. I mean, the homeless piece is a very complex societal issue. We're learning, we're listening, we're identifying training opportunities to get better in our service delivery. And I think lastly, being compassionate and respectful, non-judgmental, be positive, don't be negative, stop the stigmas, and use compassion as a guide. Thank you. Oh, Just some before and after pictures. This was an initial cleanup. And there's the after of that park. It's another situation on our lands. This was just recent. And that's the after. So like I said, we focused this strategy on 4 encampments to date. Those were 2 of them, and we've got them up. 3 of those camps are really, or sites are really good right now, and another one's fairly good. And so for the most part, we look at them, our officers go back on a daily basis. So we've got the bar up, now it's a maintain. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks very much for your report and for the work you guys are doing and the updates to council. I think are integral to this whole process, because obviously we're now communicating and have been communicating with the province and the federal government to make sure that we have the resources and supports that we require to make sure that we're able to move forward. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Councillor Warren.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought I was in the queue. Thanks so much for the report. And I really do appreciate our staff's compassionate way of trying to manage this issue. I was curious whether you've had much contact with some of the folks who presented to us in the last couple of weeks. First of all, the people involved with the Walk With Me project, as well as the substance use strategy committee folks and service providers, specifically around the substance use piece. And of course, I want to note that not all people who are unhoused, obviously, are using substances, but the ones that we do see often are, but there's many other people experiencing housing issues who are couch surfing and other things. It tends to be the most health compromised folks who we see in encampments, et cetera. But I just wondered, many of the recommendations in those presentations, I think really could be helpful in this approach. And I'd love to be able to see some of those recommendations, like working collaboratively with those folks. And I'll let you answer, and then I may have a quick follow-up. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Warren, for the question. We're developing relationships with the outreach community. We have a very strong relationship with the Transition Society, with Connect Warming Center as a base. We, at the ground level, we now sit at the biweekly meetings of the end homelessness partnerships. So we're looking forward and just developed a relationship with Dawn to Dawn. So to answer your question, it's a priority. We're building and getting links to Island Health. We've reached out there to mental health. So it's all starting to expand in terms of the outreach community. We have a long ways to go there to build that relationship. And I think we're headed in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I note in the report, I've been a stickler about language, and that's actually one of the recommendations from those groups is around stigmatizing language. And I do note in the report that there is reference to drug toxicity rather than overdose, but it's a bit inconsistent. And I appreciate all the work that goes into these reports, and noticing every detail can be difficult. I think it would be helpful to have the folks with lived experience really talk about what's helpful, and I don't know if any of our city staff have done the walk, gone on the Walk With Me, but that may be something helpful as well, because I think that sometimes we refer to reports or experts. That's not really coming from the real life experience of people, and as well with the changing kind of climate of what we're seeing, which is fentanyl that's causing so many deaths, which we've never seen in history before, this drug toxicity. So I'd love to see that, but I do appreciate all the work and the cleanup. I'm hoping that maybe with expanding those relationships to those groups, and frankly, I think the experts in terms of the people working in the field directly with people, and as well as the people with lived experience could really help our staff out. Thank you.
And thank you, Councillor, for the comments. We don't presume to understand all the complexities associated with this, but we're certainly working on it and we'll continue to build the relationships. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Warren. The comment made in regard to having more interaction with individuals with lived experience from a training perspective, I can share that we have initiated, and the bylaw officers, including myself, have participated in a naloxone training that was provided by Vancouver Island Health. And part of that was an individual who came and shared their personal lived experience. And one of the things that was very eye-opening was a reference to, it's like blinking your eyes when you're overdosing, and when your eyes reopen, all of a sudden you're surrounded by individuals that weren't there just a moment earlier. So I wholeheartedly agree, and that's something that we're trying to incorporate into all future training is the lived experience of the individuals that we're working with, not just the academics or the professionals writing the papers, but actually trying to understand how our actions physically and mentally are impacting others. I know for me that was very eye-opening, and I can say we offered 2 sessions and both were oversubscribed, and we're already looking at providing more training because there's definitely a demand within city staff to attend that training and similar trainings and expanded trainings related to it. So thank you for the reference.
I just wanted to add a note of appreciation. I think most people, when they applied for a job with the city, however many years ago, or even more recently, probably didn't expect to sign on to the magnitude of this work. And I just want to recognize that it does take sort of strong fortitude to do the work. And I appreciate that it is extremely challenging. And I just want to put out a thank you to our staff for what I've heard is a compassionate. We've heard that for many months about our frontline staff being compassionate. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Warren, and Councillor Hilling.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks to staff for the report. I do have a couple of questions, but first I want to share that I've had a lot of contact with citizens who have had concerns about campsites and other matters related to our street population and the bylaw aspect of it. And so I took the opportunity when this council agenda was made public to mail it out to a lot of those individuals to encourage them to read the report so that they could understand the city's approach. And I've already received a number of responses, one of which was to encourage us to provide the full report to the local papers so that it could be read widely by other citizens in the community. And it struck me in dealing with all of these citizens who have issues, whether it's a campsite in their neighborhood or fears about walking the streets and running a gauntlet of people who are using or impacts on their business or otherwise, that when you speak with them to help them to understand the problem and the complexities that the city is dealing with, even people who are initially angry and concerned are struck by the compassionate approach, and they get that we're in a tough situation and that we're doing the best that we can under extremely difficult circumstances. But of course, you know that there are also people who think that we should somehow round people up and herd them out of town. And of course, we don't have the jurisdiction or the capacity to do that, even if we were so inclined. But we do have one of the helpful things in the report is that you provide the legal framework that we're operating under. And there has been a recent court ruling out of Prince George, I believe, that in relation to a homeless campsite up there that challenges the practice of dismantling, having people have to pack up at the start of each day. And I'm just wondering if that's specific to that particular situation, or if it's seen that that will somehow impact how other communities, including ours, have to respond.
Ms. O'Connell was going to answer.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hillian, for the question. This was something that you're correct, has happened in the last week or so, was the ruling from a Supreme Court judge in regard to the Prince George situation. We're currently reviewing the orders coming out of the judge to see what that looks like or what that may imply for the city of Courtenay. One of our 2022 stated objectives under the council strategic priorities was a fulsome review of our parks and public use bylaws to ensure they're consistent and compliant and reflective of case law outcomes. And that'll definitely be one that's included. There is a slight distinction as well. They were really speaking to encampments, whereas in our situation, we're talking about a couple tents here and there. I don't know if it would meet the threshold of what would be considered an encampment, similar to what was in Crab Park or what is happening in Prince George. But the city staff are well aware. We're starting to review and have reached out to others to find out what the implications are, and we'll continue to monitor the legal case on that matter. Thank you.
Yes, thanks very much. I did also want to comment on the fact that you cite in the report that the danger that both the health and safety and otherwise that comes about when campsites do become permanent. People will know that there have been individuals in the community who have pushed council over the years to establish a permanent campsite. We've resisted that. And I think the report provides a clear rationale for that approach. The other thing that I wanted to add, and of course, anything that we suggest at this table ultimately involves staff doing more work. So I appreciate that we have a limited capacity. But the report makes reference to our goal of keeping our public parks and pathways safe for the use of the citizens who live here and who pay for them. And of course, we have some situations where there's question around that. We have some people who in recent submissions to council have indicated they no longer feel comfortable walking on the Rotary Trail. We have other people who have indicated they don't want to come downtown because of this issue. And I'm wondering if we have any capacity to engage with a group like Crime Stoppers, Citizens on Patrol, Rotary clubs, other service organizations to potentially start some type of community walk program where we simply encourage responsible people, people who care about their community, to walk our trails, our pathways, and through our parks, to create a presence, to report anything that they may observe, to minister to people who they see in need of help. I know there's citizens in our community who would be willing to do something like that. And I think that it's something that we could potentially do given the resources that might make a difference.
Thank you. Thank you for the question, Councillor Hillian, through the mayor. I think you need to let staff, this is an item that you're raising. So sometime we maybe consider that and understand the implications. We have partners in parks, et cetera. What you're talking about is slightly different than some of those things. There are some complexity involved in those things. And really at this point, we're working through with the resources that we have and are, I think being fairly effective. I'd like to see what this, I would honor council has assisted us with some temporary resources and let this process unfold before we start going down that route. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I certainly respect that. And you'll just appreciate that this is the most comprehensive report on this issue that's come before us to date. And I really want to applaud the work of staff in this regard, but I think it does create the opportunity for us to brainstorm other solutions, and hopefully we'll continue to do that over time. Thank you.
And thank you, Councillor Hillian. I guess I would say we plan on regularly informing council on a number of areas that you hadn't regularly received reporting, including protective services, fire, et cetera. So just stay tuned on that. And I think it's important that council understands the work that is happening in these critical areas as well, since you're regularly questioned by the public on it. Thanks.
Thank you. So Councillor Hillian, another something that's quite helpful as well is the Bylaw Services Division. We're quite consistent with our messaging to the public around division of responsibilities. So if you are encountering members of the public or the business community that have concerns regarding criminal activity, such as the use of illegal drugs, any assault, harassment, or those types of things, we're consistently reminding them to call 911 in the state of emergency or use the RCMP online reporting tool. Our understanding from our partners at the RCMP is that information to be able to track the data over time and see escalation and trends has been very useful to them in their ability to allocate resources to different areas. So if you're encountering folks, please continue to encourage them to report either to the non-emergency line or to the online reporting system or through the non-emergency line. Thank you.
Thanks for that. And we have Councillor Warren.
Thank you, Mayor. I know that we're trying to keep our discussion short in some areas, but I think this is something that we receive a lot of emails and calls and concern about. So hopefully there's latitude for a bit more discussion. Respectfully to Councillor Hillian, I know our CAO has answered the question, but I think looking at volunteers who would go out could be a good idea, but of course we know that even our staff is being trained in how to do this work, and it's really complex work, and we wouldn't have control over how skilled people were in that regard, going out and patrolling. And of course, perception is everything. Some people see someone sitting down under a tree using drugs and pass right on by because that person to them is no different than someone having a beer under a tree or something, but other people feel that their safety is in jeopardy. So there's a lot of different perceptions about that. And we know that people who don't have homes don't have a place to use substances, illegal or not. And of course, there's a movement to decriminalize use and possession. So we don't know what's down the pipe, but I guess I'd just be concerned about people not having the training and expertise to, when encountering folks. I would like to, see us reaching out to people with lived experience and people who are professionals that doesn't mean to say that people in the community can't go and have a chat and offer coffee and connect with people. But I think in terms of having, sort of citizens on patrol or something like that, I think that's not something I would be in favor of. Yeah, I appreciate this is complex, but I think we have to be really careful about what we kind of sign off on in terms of how to do this. I think our staff's doing an excellent job in trying to balance the compassion with, the incidents that happen, whether they're violent or, disturbing, and we can turn to the RCMP for those kinds of things. So, yeah, I just wanted to caution us in that regard. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Warren, for your comments, and as well, Councillor Hillian. And I think, again, the information in this report certainly is way above what we're normally getting, and so it's we have a day of lots of information on a variety of things. So it's been a great meeting, as Councillor Hillian has said, I was able to use this information in a meeting today. Which is great, and being able to look at other communities and stuff is really important. And, you know, from a political perspective, you know, this is a challenge that municipalities across Vancouver Island, across the province and across the nation are dealing with. And in fact, last night on an American TV show, last week tonight with John Oliver, this was the major story, which touched on all the things that are talked about here. And I think, you know, one of the things that that's adjacent to this doesn't solve the problem for sure. But the fact that we have the Herbaloo coming to town, which again, I believe Councillor Hillian championed that many years ago, but hopefully we'll have that opened up before too long as well. So, you know, really trying to chip away at all, not just obviously the root causes are really difficult, but some of these symptoms that we're seeing. So I really want to thank everybody for the work they're doing. And again, that was just for information. So I'll assume everybody is okay. There's no further questions. So that'd be unanimously received. And that moves us on to reports and updates from council. And I didn't get any folks ahead of time. Everybody's still good. I know events are starting to percolate a little bit here and there. It's like popcorn, you know, a little bit happening. So I'll talk about a few things that happened last week. We had the Vancouver Island Economic Alliance Summit conference that happened, and quite a few great events there. Donut Economy was sort of their keynote, and Indigenous economies, mental health, quite a variety of things really pandemic focused as well, and how we can come out of the pandemic with better systems. There was also an event last week for hospital worker appreciation, and I was invited to go along, and it was very moving to see how the folks that have been providing these life-saving services for throughout this entire pandemic responded to us with little signs saying thank you, and it was really moving. So I think it certainly begs to be reiterated that, you know, to thank the folks that are out there putting themselves in harm's way. A big kudos to our staff and the Downtown Business Association. The downtown Halloween event on Saturday was extremely well attended, with lots of people down there. A great time by everybody, and just really want to give good kudos to our staff that were involved, as well as the volunteers and folks that made sure that event was as fun as it can be. So that was great. And lastly, on Friday, we did raise the poppy flag for the Legion, and the Lest We Forget flag that we put up every year in preparation for Remembrance Day. And I want to thank councillors today for wearing their poppies. And one side note from that event is we had Kaya Saria was there, and she was the winner of the art and literature contest. Was actually, I believe, third in BC. She won locally, regionally, and then became third in BC. So she was there as well to be part of that event, and she was from Valley View Elementary. So it was really moving, again, having a student who was providing a youthful perspective on things. So with that's the things that I have on there, and we can now move into the in-camera meeting. And I have Councillor Cole-Hamilton.
Just have an urge to read resolutions today. So I'll move that a special in-camera meeting closed to the public will be held November 1st, 2021 at the conclusion of the regular council meeting pursuant to the following subsections of the committee charter: 91C, labor relations and other employee relations, and 91K. Just remember, we don't have to read the whole thing, Kate said, so I'm done.
Excellent. That's moved by Councillor Cole-Hamilton and seconded by Councillor Frisch. Thanks very much. Yeah, so we have the shorthand that we can use for that. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? And that passes unanimously. And there is no unfinished business. So that brings us into new business, the Vancouver Island Regional Library Board appointments. And Councillor Hillian.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll move that Councillor Theos be appointed to the Vancouver Island Regional Library Board for a one-year term, January 1st to December 31st, 2022, with Councillor McCollum appointed as alternate.
Excellent. That's been moved by Councillor Hillian and seconded by Councillor McCollum. And are there any questions and comments? It's pretty straightforward housekeeping. Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? And that passes unanimously. And we have bylaws first and second reading. And Councillor Frisch.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll move zoning amendment bylaw number 3030 2021 for 3040 Kilpatrick Avenue, pass first and second reading.
All right, that's been moved by Councillor Frisch, seconded by Councillor McCollum. And are there any questions or comments regarding this? Again, we have seen this before. Seeing no questions, all those in favor? Any opposed? That passes unanimously. One thing left on the agenda. Excellent. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that passes. And I believe that was Councillor McCollum that moved it. And we'll say Councillor Warren, you seconded it. How's that sound? Sure. Excellent. Fantastic. All right. Thanks so much, Rayanne, for taking the minutes virtually today. And hopefully we were able to do that in such a way it made good sense. So with that, everybody have a great night.